Welcome to today's story sharing episode about living with lipedema. Donna Piper is a therapeutic coach, trauma expert, and a certified Akashic record healer with over 20 years of experience in guiding her clients to heal unresolved trauma and to create a healthy relationships. Welcome to Beyond Diagnosis, a podcast to raise your awareness, decisions, and voice for alternative practices so you can take back control of your health. I'm Rita Michele, your host, a mindset and empowerment coach, and the founder of the ONUS platform. Join me each week so you can create the health of your dreams. Hello, Donna. So good to have you on the show.
Hello, Rita. So good to be here.
This is going to be interesting, Donna, because lipedema, I think, is something not too many people are aware of, yet it does affect only women. And surprisingly, I know you were saying before that it's like 1 in 9, which really, when you think about it, that is a lot. That's a lot of women. That's not like we're saying 1 in 1,000. If you say to people, oh, I've got lipedema, most wouldn't know what on earth you're talking about. So
100%. 100%. It is so common, yet so there's not a lot of people know about it as far as education that have it, and there's not a lot of doctors that actually know how to diagnose it. So, yeah. So when I get into it, if you're out there and you relate to any part of your story or my story, please reach out to Rita or myself or someone. Google it, try to find someone that will give you some guidance and help because, I don't think we're our diagnosis, right? However, I had this for over 40 plus years and I just recently got diagnosed, and it did definitely help kind of like, okay, I'm not crazy. I do know there's something issue with my body. My regular doctors aren't saying, this is what you need to do. I finally found someone that's like, oh yeah, you have this, this, and this. So I felt like, okay, all right, now I know what to actually do to take care of myself.
So that's definitely going to help any listener who has this or knows they have it or thinking they may have it, or also help them distinguish the difference between what is maybe a bad case of cellulite and what is lipedema. So Donna, please, when did all this start? When did this start for you?
It started like when I went through puberty. I was always like a skinny kid, and then my thighs got thick. They got heavy. But at the same time, I was like 16 and both my grandfathers passed away within a month, and I was really close to them. So I was devastated. And, I live in the States. I was born in Las Vegas. Our family really there was no education on grief and stuff. We were an Irish Catholic family that laughs and cries, but you don't want to talk about it too much, right? So I didn't really know how to process this. So I gained weight, and I was also during, I just got my period, all those things that where you like add volume. If you're going to gain any fat cells, that's when you do it. So I just thought it was that. And then I was a dancer in college, and as a good technical dancer, I was good, but I had a ballet teacher that would always like make comments about my thighs. And so is also very she's like, oh, ballet dancers, like real ballet dancers have that, that balashine and meshed sort of thing that's like super skinny. She's like, they don't have weight on their thighs. So I was always self-conscious of that 100% of my body. And, I was a dancer. So half the time you're in a leotard, you're pretty much naked on stage, so. And then I became a Pilates instructor. So most of my adult life was sometime in a mirror. And my dad had a thing with people being fat or eating fat food. So kind of always I was looking at my body through the eyes of, can I be thinner? And I thought that it was Like, even though I wasn't really eating that much, I didn't have an eating disorder, but I didn't have an appetite. I stopped eating meat when I was like in the 80s, when I was like, anti-vivisection, when kids are like against for a cause. And I always ate like organic health, all this stuff. And again, my body didn't ever really reduce weight. I never got really thin. And it was a mental game for me for years and years and years. And I just actually got diagnosed in November of 2023. So I'm 53. So I was 52. So over 40, like probably like more 15, 16, do the maths of 4 decades of really obsessing about my health of my body and wondering why that I could never lose weight around my legs, even though I worked out, I was a dancer, I was in good health, I ate really well. And it did a lot of the psychological things to me because, like, I just couldn't get it. Like, I would read online or do something, and I've probably done every cleanse, every diet, everything there is, because I couldn't figure out, like, I must be not giving my body something. Like, why is it holding on to this weight? Like, so I looked at it psychologically. My background is a therapist. I went to therapy school.
Mm.
So I was looking at it for with trauma, all these eyes. And really, it's a genetic disorder. So you're born with it. And what it has is your connective tissue, which is the stuff like in between, like holds stuff together, kind of gets like a mesh. So it starts to kind of get really wavy. So that's how they diagnose this. They take a ultrasound and they look at your connective tissue, and they could do it visually, but basically your fat cells press past your connective tissue. And I know there's more scientific ways to do it, but this is how it was just, this is my interpretation of it. And basically, once your body creates fat, you create fat cells and they have volume, there's no way for it to reduce. So I can eat 800 calories a day and I can work out for 2 hours a week, and there's not going to be any change in the actual volume of my body. Until there's the things that you can do is there is, but well, do you have a question? Because I kind of been talking. So do you
No,
have anything? Oh,
well,
okay.
it was, I guess my first question would be, for the listeners who are unsure, how do you identify the difference between uh, cellulite and maybe a bad case, or yeah, I don't know if bad's the right word, but a bad case of cellulite and lipedema? How do you know the difference? And
Well,
what forms, like what do your legs, you were saying it's more the legs, I think it's the arms. What's happening? What do they look like differently to someone who has cellulite?
so usually, typically for lipedema, your body, when you look at your body, um, there's some common things. Usually you have hyperextended joints. We don't know why, but that is. So,
Mm.
and then when you look at your body, your knees may come together, and then your feet go out a little bit more. So it's very slight and there's 4 stages. So the more you progress, like, the reason why I really know I have it, because I gained 40 pounds within like 3 weeks of each other, and I couldn't figure out. They thought I had blood cancer. They thought I had all this stuff. But and I was like, well, it feels like edema. It feels like my body has swollen up. So I looked at lymphedema, your lymph system, and to see that. So that's how I kind of went down this road to find a doctor that specialized in lymphedema, and I got diagnosed with lipedema because the area, it's usually starts in your lower body and between your knees and your thighs. And it kind of just looks like a sausage. It's just like you don't have definition, really. You just have more weight between, and it's symmetrical on both sides of your body, right and the left. So from your hips to your knees, there's just more weight. So we have I worked out, I did all that stuff, but I never, like, I had strong thighs, but I didn't have a lot of definition. There was always fat around them. And I actually didn't start to get cellulite until I got into stage 2. So there's different, probably, like, so if your body system looks like it's very symmetrical on both sides and you're gaining more weight there, that's where it starts. And then when it starts to spread, then it'll go into your calves and then your lower leg, and it'll kind of look like a cuff. Like, so then, like, so I'm sure everyone's seen, like, there's people that get
That
super
have the
thin
big,
and then super heavy, and you could tell that they look the same, but they're just heavier, right?
yes, yes,
Because their body proportions are still kind of the same. That it maybe it goes on your tummy a little bit more, but essentially not like this is really starts more in the lower half of the body, and then the thighs are always thick. It's more pear. You have more saddlebags around there, and then you just have a thick or heavier thighs, and then eventually it'll be heavier calves, and then so your weight kind of looks like your it's just like it's called a cuff. And if you look at your ankles, it's like it's someone put like a little rubber band, or those joggers people wear now that have the elastic bands, or in the 80s or whatever,
yes,
when
yes.
you have the elastic band at the end, that's what it looks like. You know how it pulls together and then it
Mm.
kind of bellows above? That's what your fat will start to look like around your legs. And then it can move into your arms. And then eventually it could even move into, when you're in stage 3 and 4, it could move to the fat. There's like fat pockets that could grow onto your scalp. So then you just have all this fat that is in strange places, kind of you wouldn't normally, because like if I ate a ton, which I wish I would, you know what I mean, like I always felt like, and doctors I would see, even though I know I was super healthy and ate all this organic food and worked out, there was always a feeling like people are looking at me like, oh, you must eat a lot, you must be downing like pizzas a day, there's no way that you could look like that and eat how you say you're doing. Like, so I always felt like, people thought
There's
that
a
I was
lot of
lying.
judgment.
Lots of judgment. Like, there's just no way.
That's a lot to
I
deal
must
with.
be lying.
Yeah.
So, and then it's confusing because I know I'm doing that. And then I was like, well, maybe I'm just not as, maybe I don't do it long enough, or maybe I haven't found the right sort of combinations of food and all of this other stuff. But so that's kind of the physical part of it. Also, the physical things that come with lymphedema, most people have in common. You get migraines. Um, you have no, don't have really much of an appetite. And then usually you could see it in your parents too. Sometimes your mothers and the rest of your family have this. Men seldomly get this. They can get it, but it's way more common in women. Um, and then the other thing is that once you get diagnosed with it, there's a few things you want to do. You want to make sure that you're eating so because it runs also with the lymph system, the lymphatic system, um, and because how it connects with uh, fat growth, all of these different things. The best sort of diet is non-meat, maybe chicken, seldomly. You
Mm.
want to stay away from gluten, things that are gluten-free, like fake gluten-free. Like if you get a bread that's gluten-free, stay away from that because of the preservatives, all of that. Um, you want to mainly have a vegetarian type of diet with lots of different vegetables and little caffeine. My challenge is that I not only got diagnosed with lipedema, I also got diagnosed finally with mast cell activation disorder syndrome. So that is a whole other thing, which basically foods that are healthy that I was eating forever because that's what they're like, eat this Mediterranean diet. So avocados, olives, fermented foods, sauerkraut, kombucha, chocolate, citrus, lemons, limes, oranges, all of that stuff that in my body creates a histamine surplus. So histamine is good for your body. So if people don't know about mast cell, but basically Histamine you need for your immune system, but by eating certain foods, if you have a mast cell activation disorder or syndrome, then it releases extra histamine. So then your body gets flooded with histamine. It goes into the blood system, which goes to the organs, and then you're in a chronic state of inflammation. And then that list of food that is not suggested that you eat for histamines, there's a lot of, like I just mentioned, and more, like anything from a can, any leftovers. So when you cross-reference that with the lipedema diet, there's not a lot for, there is a lot of food to eat, but there's not a lot of food. Food is like a challenge to figure out what to eat anyway when you have lipedema because you don't have a lot of an appetite. But also having these two things together is really kind of like, what can I eat? But there's machines that basically it's a machine and it's a leg pump to help pump the fluid out, because with edema, with any type of edema, your body has a hard time processing all the extra fluids, because your lymph system is also helps to detoxify and move bad, like things in your body that's not great for you, out. But when that starts to slow down, then it's compiled. So having it's like, they're just leg pumps, basically. That's what it is. And you're in this machine and you get a lymphatic massage and it kind of helps with the draining. And then you're in this machine and it helps with this to reduce the swelling. Also, a compression hose are a big part of it too. You wear a compression hose and that helps just the circulation of your blood and everything, because as things pool and you swell, all of those things just stop working as well. So in the first stage, you may not even really know you have it. Most people don't, even by the third or fourth stage, unless you go to a good doctor. And by the second stage, you'll start to gain weight and not be able to lose any weight. So that's really like I said. So then based visually on how your body's looking, then I would suggest to find a lipedema or lymphedema doctor in your area. To go and see, and they do the ultrasound to see if you have connective tissue disorder. That's what it's called technically in the States, is the connective tissue disorder. But sorry, my cat.
There's a lot there for people to consider, isn't there? Because what I'd like to know is, were there particular times throughout before you got diagnosed that I was just looking at the cat behind you.
I know.
I was wondering what that was.
She was sleeping all day until right now. So
was there a particular, when did you first start with you? Was it at puberty, menopause? Like you said, you felt quite distressed with the dying of your grandparents. Is there a trigger, or is it genetic and that's it?
it's genetic. So I think in my case, so it's genetic. So it was going to happen. However, because I did eat a vegetarian diet for so long and I did move and did exercise and did all those things, and I've always kind of been a slant of, I do believe that your body can cure itself. I mean, it definitely needs help, but I've always been in that mindset that,
Yes.
there's always hope and stuff, and there's always a way. For me, I think what happened is because I thought maybe I was in menopause, or it was compounded a little bit. Let me go back. So about 10, 15 years ago, that's when my stomach issues got really, really bad. And I started to look pregnant every time I ate. And I was like, I don't understand. And I was in a lot of pain. And so there's a lot of functional doctors in LA that are usually very cutting edge. I went to 5 of them in a row, like over a few years. And they gave me anything from maybe it's my thyroid to maybe it's my estrogen, but all of my levels were good. So there wasn't really any of that. So they didn't know. So really what it was the mast cell histamine stuff. That was my issue. They didn't diagnose me with that. They weren't aware of it or whatever, but that was never a consideration for them to say, oh, you're probably uh, have histamine intolerance. Check this out. They never did that. Probably because of my weight, they figured I was eating things. I remember one functional doctor, the first one, I said, and I kind of brushed it off. And then I thought of it, it became a memory of like, he said, there is eating that you should do. I'll give you thyroid medication, but you're probably not going to want to change your diet. And I was kind of like, well, I'm eating all these healthy foods. And then he's like, no, you'd have to. So again, that was a prejudice. Like it wasn't, it was the lipedema stuff. So for me, I went to then, because of the pain in my stomach, I tried everything. So during the pandemic, I was like in so much pain and I was like, okay, I haven't eaten meat in like 30 plus years. Let me just eat this. I met someone that like, oh, I had the same thing, all meat diet, all milk diet, 100%. Like, she's like, the pain in your stomach will go away. It did go away, but what it also did, all of those foods, actually, I couldn't detox because my lymph is compromised because of the lymphedema in that whole system. So then I gained like 30 pounds and I was like, I don't understand and what was going on. So that also triggered some other things in my body because they thought I had like blood cancer, all of these different things. Then my mom actually did have lung cancer. So then I thought it was just stress or my body reacting to being in a pandemic and my mother getting diagnosed with lung cancer and my weight all of a sudden gaining 40 pounds in a few weeks. But really, it was, I didn't know I had mast cells. So I was eating all these histamine foods like every day, avocados, olives, stuff with lemon on it,
Mm.
literally everything on that list when I got it, I was eating. Plus, I was eating meat and dairy, which I hadn't for years. So, and those two things add to the weight gain and the lymphedema. I thought maybe like I'm in menopause and I'm not. I'm not even in perimenopause, which I should be. So my hormone levels are fine. They won't give me any. No one ever prescribed to me like estrogen or testosterone or any of that to help with the weight at all, because there wasn't a significant, range to do that. So for me, it was more the food that I was eating. And if I would have known I had lymphedema, I would have always stayed on a vegetarian diet. One of the things they say that only to eat once a year is turkey. And that was like kind of my gateway meat food back to meat. So I'd have turkey burgers, I have turkey bacon and all that stuff. And again, so I was doing all the wrong things for my body to try to get a solution to not be in physical pain because of my stomach and to potentially see how I can like lose this weight, because then the trauma of just like all these years of having this weight thing, having my father be like, he was pretty much against people that were heavy. Like he made fun of them. My sister was a little heavier. That was the deal. That was his own stuff with his own weight that he, put out there. And then being a dancer, being in front of a mirror, as a Pilates instructor. So why didn't I look like I had this, beautiful dancer's body? Even though I was athletic and I had a nice body, it still wasn't, I still had that weight. And then the psychological part of like, okay, now I went from a size 4'6" to a 10-12 within not even a month. And that's a lot to
That's a
do.
lot.
Like I look at myself in the mirror and I'm just like, what? I don't recognize you. Um, so then it's been a lot. So then when I was diagnosed, it's been a grieving process of like, oh, like I wasted all these years and all this energy, like beating up on myself for not doing things correctly. Even though I knew there was still, the result wasn't there. And now I have to change everything that I eat, and it's not that easy. And it's very painful. So lymphedema not only is like the just the cellulite and the creping in the stage 2, and it looks really dimpling, it's also very painful. So you're like can bruise easily because of the connective tissue. You might just do something and it won't even hurt you, but you'll have a big bruise, or you'll work out. I used to work out and just do some leg movement that wasn't even with weights or a bar, and I'd end up with these bruises. And I was like, what's that from? And it's because of the connective tissue. And then as you gain weight on your body for so long, then like my knees and my ankles and certain things have come up, because it's also painful on your joints and stuff too because of it. So it's not just aesthetic issue, it's also physically in pain. You have a lot of pain.
Mm.
Walking is more difficult. So
It definitely sounds like it interrupts your physical life and has definitely an emotional component to it. If we could just circle back very quickly to, excuse me, has the low histamine diet helped you? Has it reversed anything, or does it help you not for it not to progress further?
The low histamine diet will help with, it has helped my energy and it has helped my brain fog, because the histamine, the parts with that, it is painful and you have the stomach bloating and all that stuff, but
Mm.
it also gives you a lot of brain fog, and it also makes you really tired when you have this chronic condition of inflammation, which I've had for decades because that's how I've been eating and it all just came. So that has helped. And it's going to help even more as time goes on, because, it took me 40 plus years to get in this situation. So it's going to take a little bit to undo it. And I'm at the
Absolutely.
beginning.
Yeah.
But my doctors have said, like, yeah, excuse me, if I wanted to, I could go get liposuction and I could feel better, maybe just visually, and it maybe won't hurt my joints so much, but I'm never really going to feel great until I really get the mast cell histamine stuff in order. Because even if my weight reduces, if I am still eating like lemons or things or whatever,
Mm.
and I have a histamine reaction, I'm still going to be in a chronic state of inflammation, which is still going to affect me. So mine's a little bit more complicated, but it's not unique, because a lot of people that do have lipedema also have mast cell, which mast cell is also hereditary.
Yes, it is. And that I find it interesting because when you read a lot about mast cell activation or histamine, they say that protein is good. But so the protein element of your taking the protein out of your diet, is that mainly for your lipedema or
It-
it's for your lipedema? So protein isn't great for lipedema. Is that because
No.
it holds on to protein, holds on to water, or?
It has to do with, so I'm not really good at remembering all the technical things, but basically the proteins that there is in meat and dairy, how that it influences how things get passed through the lymph system, and it's like it's really milky, and it also um is something that activates your fat cell growth. I don't know why,
Interesting.
but because there's only certain times that you add fat cells. You add fat cells as women is in puberty, when you're pregnant, or when you are in menopause. So I'm not in menopause yet, so they are suggesting to me that I could probably reduce my volume by doing these things over time. But once menopause, that's maybe another story. I may gain a lot more weight, that it's uncontrollable. And this is the thing, like it's the weight is uncontrollable. How my body chooses to grow, add more cells. And then once the fat cell is grown, then the cell can grow. So when you gain and lose weight, you only have so many fat cells, but the cell itself grows and shrinks. So
Mm.
say like you eat bad for a few years and you're just a normal person that just eats extra stuff. And then you maybe stop eating sugar and you exercise more and you start to shrink. right? Or some of the few common ones. With lipedema, that doesn't happen. It grows on its own, and they don't really know why. It's there's more testing, but a lot of money hasn't been put to it. They discovered it, I think, back in like the 90s-ish, but still most people don't know about it. Right. And that's really why I'm telling my part story, because if you think that you might have it, the only reason why I found a doctor that could help me is because I followed this person. His name is Dr. Perry Nicholson. It's called Stop Chasing Pain on Instagram because it was about lymphedema. So he had lymphedema. He almost died. So I was like, my body swole up I couldn't eat my way to 40 pounds of weight gain in a few weeks. You know what I mean?
No,
It's just not
it's
physically
not.
possible.
No.
So then I'm like, it's swelling. So what to do? So then and he has this whole program. I took that and Glymph. I learned a lot about it. But I did everything that he suggested and it still wasn't going down. So there was a book about diet, and one of the women that wrote it, I started looking up their names, like who wrote this book, who can help me? Like, even if I have to fly somewhere, I need to figure this out. And she happened to be local in Santa Monica. So I made an appointment with her, and I was really hoping that it was going to be lymphedema, Lymph edema, instead of LIP, because lipedema, again, it's genetic. They can't really do anything about, and unless you get surgery and you get liposuction. Liposuction is the only way really to reduce your volume of your
That's what I
body.
was going to ask.
Once it grows, that's kind of it. When you're in stage 1 and 2, and I'm in stage 2, you can maybe push it back to stage 1-ish with exercise and doing the lymph, the pumping, and wearing the compression hose. However, when I go through menopause, that may not be the case, and my body just might decide to grow in volume. It doesn't matter what I eat. It doesn't matter what I exercise. I mean, eating and what I exercise like matters, but it's not like how we think about weight right now in our country, and maybe also in your country. Like, they associate with weight and obesity, and it's not obesity, but it looks like obesity, and it will be misdiagnosed as obesity, is that you're eating and consuming too many calories, and you're not exercising, right? Which all these doctors had told me, which I always worked out for like a couple hours a day my whole life, and I always ate really well. So, and I still gained all this weight. So that is, if you're someone out there that has always kind of struggled with, eating well, and you work out, those two things are happening, but your body isn't responding, go find someone that specializes in lymphedema or lipedema in your area, even if you have to do a teleconference, because probably maybe more in your country, but I know more in Europe, not so much in the States. We're doing it a little bit more about, it's been like talked about a tiny bit more, but to find someone to give you some real diagnosis and help you to craft a maintenance plan. Because really, my goal is, I would love to, and my secret hope is, and my dream is that I go back to like a 4 or a 6. However, the reality is I'm just trying not to get larger. I'm not trying to get into stage 3 and stage 4, where I have rolls and my legs are really bigger and it is super uncomfortable. And I am, 80 pounds more than I am now. And I have like, fat underneath my skull, and I'm in constant pain and I can't really walk. Like, so my goal is to stay in stage 2 at the best, and then if I can decrease it, that's amazing, without surgery. And I probably will do surgery at some point, depending on how much I could.
That's liposuction.
Yeah,
Surgery is
liposuction.
the liposuction. So from what you're saying is, for our listeners, to help them identify that this accumulation of excess fat, it is fat,
Yeah.
is excess fat, isn't
Mhm.
really on the torso as much. It's predominantly the limbs. Is that correct? So
Yeah,
if
it
you
starts
don't,
in the limb.
so it
Yeah,
starts in the, can it be in the, because that would be so confusing for someone to identify or to realize the difference between obesity, just having cellulite, lipidemia, if it's all over. So is it,
yes. So it really does. I think there are cases where it's low, but predominantly you have had your whole life some sort of weight in your legs, upper thighs. So it really starts in the lower area of your body. And then, because for me, I always had like a really flat stomach. I never had weight around my waist, as big as my legs were, or however I perceived them, but they weren't proportionate with my body. So my waist was really small, but my legs and my butt were big. That could, there's other genetic stuff, but there was the fat around them that wouldn't go down. So, and then when I got into stage 2, that's where I got more upper, like my arms got bigger and I got weight in my waist.
mm,
So, and so if like, and for me, as soon as she said it, and as soon as I kind of knew, even though I wanted the the lymphedema, because the LYMPH one, it's easier to reverse. Okay. The lipedema is harder to reverse. And a lot of times it's not reversible. So, but like when she said, like, oh, yeah, you get migraines, you have weight here, you have hyperextension, your knees come together, and then your calves kind of separate a little bit.
so
It's
it's a
like
bit
kind of
like that
classic.
shape.
Yeah, in the knees. You've always had saddlebags and weight on your thighs. And all of those things were like, oh yeah, ding, ding, ding. So if you're listening and you have those things, it wasn't like one day, because a lot of times you gain weight around, after pregnancy or different things in your life.
Mm,
So you can look at your body and see kind of know like how it's been there. That gives you kind of a little bit of a clue. And then when you go in to get diagnosed, you actually get an ultrasound to see if it's a connective tissue issue. So they look at the ultrasound and your connective tissue is breaking down. It's not solid like it should be. It looks like a mesh. And that's really how they diagnose it. So if you're not sure, find someone that specializes in those, in this sort of field, because my other doctors literally were just, maybe you drink too much water, maybe you don't drink enough water. Maybe
mm.
you're eating too much and not moving as much. And so for one of my doctors, I literally for one summer, I think it was 2021 or two, I took a log of what I was eating and I didn't change it. I just, took it and I ate like around, I always average around like 1,800, 2,000 calories. And I work out for 2 hours a day. I do a bike for an hour and I do Pilates or do something, or I go for a hot walk. I have forever. And so I listed all this stuff down. And so I was like, this is what I do all the time. And then he's just like, yeah, well, maybe you're moving too much. Maybe you're
Either
not.
you move too little, you move too much, you eat too much, you eat too little, you did. It's a minefield.
Right, yeah, and my doctor is telling me if this story, and this could relate to someone that's only, I know we're going longer, but she said that, and it was heartbreaking, and I really was tearing. Like once I got this diagnosis, I was like crying of like relief. And then she told me this other story. She had a patient recently come to her, and she was on you know how do they do intermittent fasting? Is that a
Yeah. Oh,
big
yeah.
thing for
It's
you?
big.
Okay. So she went to this known intermittent fasting doctor, blah blah blah, and she did the hours, and then he put her on like an 800-calorie diet, and she ate everything. She went. So what she lost is she lost weight in her rib cage and up here, right, where you don't really accumulate a lot of fat
Yes.
anyway, but you can. And she's like, I don't understand. I did everything, and he looked at her and he said, you must be lying to me and you must be cheating. There's no way that you could eat 800 calories and eat during this time frame and not lose weight. So she finally found this other, my doctor, and she broke down in tears too, because like, I'm not crazy. I'm not being called a liar from my medical professionals. You're not doing anything wrong, right? You're
Mm.
really not doing that. And for me, it messed up my relationship with food and my own body image for a long time, and how people view me, because like, why isn't it easy? Why can people just work out for 20 minutes a day and maybe just cut out sugar for a week and they lose 10 pounds? Like, I go on fasts, I went on fasts for like 10 days or whatever to, be more healthy, but also I wanted the weight loss part, and I never lost a pound. And other people went on it and they lost 15 pounds. So if you're someone that has had these stories where you have done these things that technically should give you some weight loss, maybe not 20 pounds, but maybe 5, and there's nothing budging, you might want to look in to see if if you could get more specialized treatment and eat in a way that's going to benefit your body. Other than having cheese and meat. And even if you love cheese and meat, you can have it in a little bit sometimes, but the rule is to not have them. And that helps. That just helps your body not get enlarged. It helps the swelling and all the lymph flow and all the other things that edema does. I
What I
know this is a lot, so thank you, Rita, and thank you, listeners, for listening. But it's important to be your own advocate, and that's why I asked Rita to share, because I really want people to know that there's an other alternative other than that you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, or if you're trying these things and they're not working for you, that it's not you, like you didn't fail. It's not a willpower thing. It's not a go exercise thing. Like,
Mm.
it could be something else that there's specialized treatment for. And once you're in that world, it's a relief. But, the media, I mean, here in the States, I think everywhere, it's a lot about being healthy. And like in my case too, all the healthy foods that are supposed to be anti-inflammatory, like, have been really messing with me and actually making me chronically inflamed, and then feeding into the lipedema. And like, again, like, I was so desperate that I tried to eat all this meat and dairy, which is great. Like, whatever help, however you eat is cool. Like, I'm not here to preach that. But for me specifically,
It didn't work.
that was more detrimental. So
Mm.
I also want people to know about, like, if they have this, then maybe don't do what I did and go and eat like tons of steak and organic dairy and, gain an extra 20 pounds if you don't have to, if you're already eating like in a manner that was more like unconscious. But like, I was a vegetarian when I was a kid. So I kind of had some more sense that I didn't even know I had sense about, to
You
get me to this
intuitively
point.
knew. You intuitively
Yes.
knew when you were younger that we then override from external influences when we get older. And the thing I'm loving so much about your story is, and it's the hope of this podcast for people who are not being seen, heard, and believed by their primary caregiver, whoever that is, whether it's alternative or traditional, is that stories like yours give people that hope, and to understand what has someone else done who's walked the path before me. And also, I'd like to just to touch on, because this is the thing that's really challenging, I think, for people who are so down about their condition. They're emotionally depressed. They're not being listened to. Nothing's working. They're comparing themselves to others. What is it that kept you going. And I love it that you kept going and seeking out someone until you found someone with an answer. You didn't just give up and accept. You had that courage and that desire to help yourself. So how did you keep going with all the through all the judgment, the obviously the trauma that your body was different to other people, that you wanted it in for your body to be a different way? How did you create that positive relationship back with yourself to be able to keep going, stand up and speak up for yourself?
I got kind of emotional when you were saying that. Because like I haven't had that reflect back to me, so thank you. Um, but I think I was like, I know I'm not crazy, right? Like I
Mm,
know a lot of different I'm one of those people that know a lot of random information that you're like, why do you even know that? And that I couldn't find the answer. It just bothered me so much. I was like, this isn't unique. Like I don't think that I have some sort of unique, very, point
rare.
zero zero one 2% of something. I'm like, my body isn't what I'm doing and how my body reacting isn't typical. And there is something out there that I knew that I'm like, if I just like I've tried everything, I need to start, try this other thing. I think also I'm kind of relentless on things when I can't find an answer too. It's like I know there's an answer to my situation. I know there's a way to reverse this. There has
Mm,
to be.
mm,
And I was really depressed and I was like I've had really dark days like, oh my God, I can't believe I look like this and I can't believe like why is my body failing me? What did I do wrong? And I had to remind myself, I also had, a couple decades of doing a lot of spiritual work, going on a month of silence. I kind of had to remind myself, like, no, like you need to go through this journey for some reason, even if I hated every minute of it, or I'm like, why this, like all of that stuff. Like, I'm not a spiritual bypasser and not into toxic positivity, like some of the darkest days I had, I was like, well, why am I so depressed? I've moved my whole life. I did all these things. Like, it's unfair. Like, what is going on with me?
mm,
And I just kept on going, giving myself little breadcrumbs. If I hadn't signed up for, found that guy on the internet, right, for the lymphedema, and if I hadn't done his courses and I haven't saw his reference that he referenced this book and I got this nutrition book and then tried all that, and if that didn't work, then I decided to go through each doctor and she happened to be here. So I think it was just for whatever reason, Rita, I needed to go through this. Like, I help people with trauma for the last 20 years and I have relationships and stuff. And I really needed to go through this journey. Like, why? I don't know this long, but I'm here. But now I really feel it's important that I say it as much as possible and be not proud of it, but really proud of it. Just own it. Like, I have lymphedema. I'm going to do things to change it, but people need to know about it. And especially when I found out, like, the same statistic as cancer with women with breast cancer is 1 in 9 is also lymphedema. And I think this is more psychologically an issue. It's a physical issue because there's pain and all of this, but also the emotional and psychological issues from judgment and people not hearing and being seen. Like that's the worst thing. We all want to be seen and heard and felt and loved,
absolutely.
right? And when you have this thing that no one is like giving you, they're brushing it all off or think that you're doing something that you're not, and they're not even listening to the possibility that you could be right. You could be giving them something, an alternative to what their knowledge is, right? Like my doctor's like functional, traditional and non-traditional. I had it. I went to Chinese doctors. I literally went to every kind of doctor until I found something that I didn't even know lipedema was a thing.
Mm, mm,
I've never even heard of it before I took this course on lymphedema, and there was lipedema as part of this book. Like, I didn't even really read that part because I was like, no, I don't know what that is. I don't think I have that. Like, oh, it's genetic. I'm like, oh, Because in my mind, I'm like, oh, if I had a genetic condition, I think any of my doctors, especially the ones that I paid out of pocket tens of thousands of dollars
Mm.
for, would have told me. But they didn't. They didn't even tell me that I had mast cell, which histamine.
That's
I
amazing.
didn't know about that either. And that's a huge thing.
Mm.
And so I was like, well, I got misdiagnosed. No one caught those. I think it was because of my appearance
Mm.
and their assumption that I wasn't eating the way I was. And that is like, it's heartbreaking to me because there's a lot of time and wasted. But, I'm kind of tenacious, but people that aren't, that have this and that aren't willing to fight back with their doctors or not willing to go out and don't have the energy, because when you're sick like this, it's chronic condition, you don't have a lot of energy. Like I couldn't like clean my house. I couldn't do things. I was like, what is going on with me? Like, why don't I have energy to clean my house? So
Mm.
that eating a lower histamine diet has given me a lot more energy. So now I can kind of do more regular activities. But no, this is really a debilitating sort of condition, both of them, if they are left untreated and if you're getting prescribed to do stuff, which is the antithesis of what your body needs based on these diagnoses, right? It's a great thing if I just ate a lot of food. I wish I kind of like, I'm eating candy and I'm eating all this, I'm eating like 20,000 calories a day, right? I wasn't. I'm not even close. So it's just, I just want people to know about it. So it's an option for them, that it's not just obesity. It's not just because what if they think that it's obesity and they do the bypass surgery?
Yeah.
And
It's
it's
not going to
not
help.
like, that sucks, right? To go through that. Like that's a major surgery. These things are major surgery. This is not a little thing.
Mm.
And so that's my thing. And I'm so sorry I'm talking so much, but
No,
I kind
absolutely
of
not. I love it because each thing that you're sharing, a listener will garner a golden nugget out of that. And that's what I'm finding so inspiring about you, Donna, is that you've got something, lipedema, which obviously has affected your life physically and emotionally. You've experienced judgment. You've had to fight against stereotypic attitudes of what's considered fat and overweight, and the reason for that being overweight. You've experienced not being heard and listened to, and you said you've been depressed. I mean, the external um, impact of all of that, on you must be huge. And yet you get up, you fight for yourself, you don't give up, you believe that you're worth more, you believe that you're worth an answer, and the correct answer, not just sit back, be depressed, have this condition, everybody thinks it's like this, why me, poor me. You've gone out there and thought, no, I know I'm right. There is an answer for me and I'm going to find it. Love it, love it, love it. You know,
Thank you.
that's what, so that's going to be my next question is, what are you most hoping to achieve through your story with the listeners today?
Just really to give people that there is an answer, like two things, like don't stop. If you know something is going on with your body, trust that. You know more actually than other people that you're going to. I mean, I want to say that in a nice way, but we go to doctors, we go to stuff, they have a knowledge for some things, right? And they help. But if you really know that like you're just not getting the right answer, or you just am like, no, that's not really it,
Mm.
don't give up. Really find things, look like what I did. If you have a book about this, or if you see someone's name related to that, reach out for them. And if they don't know something, maybe they could refer. Because that's really what I was hoping for, a referral. When I reached out to this name and she happened to be here, I was just like, well, where could I go to learn more about this stuff in my area? And the other thing is that just talk about it. A lot of things with any trauma or with any any story you have in life, the more you talk about it, the more light shines into it. So the guilt and the shame that I've felt that I didn't even really know I had, but like it came crashing down on me when I got diagnosed about being fat and not owning it or being like judged by it and all of these things. Um, if you talk about it and shine light onto these things that you don't want to accept about yourself, it starts to shift and you're able to accept that. And that's something I mean, it's been a big message for my professional life for 20 plus years.
Mm.
More about relationships with trauma, but I need to apply it like this. I needed to also be like, hey, girl, like you kind of were okay with your weight, you thought, but you really weren't. You felt a lot of shame and guilt around it. So
Mm.
you need to own and embrace the things that you think that there's too ugly, too much, the dark stuff, and bring it to the light. And I think those two is like share your story. I want people to know that there's an alternative out there to something that they can actually get treatment for to help them in the stages of 1 and 2. Because like I said, if I would have got diagnosed with this in my 20s, I would have had a different way I ate and I looked at myself. So much mental and emotional anguish and time I wasted on my body stuff unconsciously, more so than consciously, but it was a lot of time. And I want someone else not to go through that. Get get diagnosed early, get a plan so you don't have to be in a situation where you need liposuction or you're not in so much pain that
Mm.
you're just walking around with. And also you can also be seen and heard and like know that there's someone out there that has experienced something similar to you and you're not alone.
Donna, thank you. Thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your story and your message of hope, of advocacy, of resilience, never giving up. And honestly, so many people will benefit just from that, even if they don't have lipidemia. But if someone does, or they suspect they do, and they're experiencing judgment or emotional trauma, please reach out to Donna. All of her details will be in the show notes. She is the person to speak to. Thank you so much, Donna, for being on the show.
Thank you, Rita.
Thanks. I would love to know, what was the biggest insight or aha moment you got from this interview? So you can now speak up, take action, and make informed decisions for your health. And if you like this episode, get instant access to your free ebook, Alternative Wisdom, Taking Back Control of Your Health, at life-onus.com.